The story of Daenerys Targaryen is one of the most fascinating in all of Game of Thrones. She started as a frightened girl with nothing. She was sold off, treated like a tool, and pushed aside by her own family. But as her journey went on, she grew into a powerful queen, a conqueror, and the mother of dragons. She dreamed of one thing more than anything else: the Iron Throne. For her, that throne was not just a chair made of swords. It was a symbol of her destiny, of her right to rule, and of her family's lost glory. But what if the Iron Throne itself rejected her? What if, from the very beginning, she was never meant to sit on it? In Game of Thrones, nothing is random. Every vision, every prophecy, and every dream has meaning. Back in Season 2, Daenerys entered the House of the Undying. There she saw strange visions. She saw the Iron Throne, but it was broken and covered in ashes. She walked toward it, hand outstretched, but before she could touch it, she was pulled away. Many fans thought this meant she would rule, but only after destruction. Yet if you look closely, she never sat on the throne. She never touched it. She came so close, but something always stopped her. That detail might not be an accident. It could be the key to her whole story. The idea that the throne rejected her is not about magic swords or curses. It is about fate. The Iron Throne was built from the swords of defeated enemies. It was said to cut kings and queens who were unworthy, as if it had a will of its own. Generations of rulers sat on it, and many of them met bloody ends. But when it came to Daenerys, she never got the chance. She stood in the throne room. She had conquered King's Landing. She had broken her enemies. She had everything in her grasp. And yet, before she could place herself upon it, Jon Snow killed her. It was as if history itself blocked her path. Some fans believe this was destiny. The throne knew she was too much fire, too much rage, too much destruction. Her rule would not bring peace, only endless war. If she had sat on it, perhaps the 7 kingdoms would have burned in fire forever. The throne could not allow that. And so, just as in her vision, she stretched her hand toward it, but she was never able to hold it. Think of the irony. Daenerys spent her entire life chasing something that was never hers. She crossed deserts, freed slaves, fought battles, lost friends, lost dragons, and lost her own heart in the struggle. And all for a dream that would never come true. It almost feels cruel. But that cruelty is exactly what makes this theory so haunting. It suggests that her fall was not because she was weak or even because she went mad. It was because the very seat of power she desired rejected her spirit. Look closer at the throne room scene in the final season. Snow was falling, or was it ash? The throne was waiting, but the room was silent and broken. Daenerys approached it with wonder in her eyes. She touched it with her hand, but she never sat down. That single detail matches her vision perfectly. The Iron Throne was always a dream that would fade away as soon as she got near. The rejection was complete. She could win battles. She could kill enemies. But she could never claim the throne. The deeper you think about it, the stranger it feels. Jon Snow did not just stab her because he felt betrayed. He became the hand of destiny. The sword that ended her life was the final barrier between her and the throne. Jon himself may have been the living proof that the throne had chosen another path. The realm did not need fire and blood. It needed something colder, something quieter, someone who would not burn cities to ash. By killing Daenerys, Jon became the one to carry out the will of history. But what if we go even deeper? What if the Iron Throne itself was never meant for anyone? By the end of the story, the throne was melted by Drogon's fire. The dragons may not speak, but their actions carry meaning. Drogon saw Daenerys dead, and instead of killing Jon, he destroyed the throne. But some say it was because he knew that this symbol, this cursed seat of power, had destroyed his mother. It was the obsession with the throne that pushed her into madness. By melting it, Drogon might have been showing the truth. The throne had rejected everyone, not just Daenerys. Still, Daenerys' story feels different. Unlike others who sat on it and lost their lives later, she never even got to try. Robert Baratheon, Joffrey, Cersei, each of them at least held power for a time. Daenerys was denied at the very last step. She arrived at the gates of her destiny, but the door closed in her face. That is why this theory captures the imagination. It makes her story tragic in a new way. Not as a mad queen or a villain, but as a woman fighting for a prize that had already rejected her long ago. Her journey begins to look like a long, winding circle. In the East, she rose to power. She became a queen without a throne. She inspired armies and followers. She was loved and feared. But when she finally reached Westeros, the land her family had lost, the one place where the Iron Throne stood, everything collapsed. If you trace her steps, you see a story that was doomed from the start. The throne never wanted her. Some fans even believe that this rejection connects to her bloodline. The Targaryens were a family of extremes. Half of them were great rulers, the other half were cruel tyrants. It was said that every time a Targaryen was born, the gods flipped a coin. With Daenerys, the coin landed on fire, not balance. The throne, in its silent way, may have chosen not to allow that fire to rule over the realm. This is what makes her tale so haunting. She was close enough to touch her dream, but not to live it. Imagine her feelings in that final moment, walking toward the throne she had wanted all her life, only to die before she sat upon it. If you look at it through this theory, it feels less like Jon killed her, and more like the throne itself did. She never ruled because the Iron Throne rejected Daenerys. If we accept the idea that the Iron Throne rejected Daenerys, then the next question is why? What made her unworthy, not in the eyes of her enemies, but in the eyes of fate itself? To understand this, we must look at her journey through a different lens. Daenerys was always meant to represent fire. She was born on Dragonstone during a storm. Her very nickname was Stormborn. She survived fire that should have killed her when she stepped into Drogo's funeral pyre. Dragons hatched for her and no one else. Everything about her screamed fire, passion, and destruction. But the Iron Throne was not simply fire. It was made of swords, forged in dragonfire, yes, but it represented something colder: control, balance, and the burden of ruling. Daenerys could burn her way to it, but could she ever sit calmly upon it? Perhaps the throne itself answered that question by pushing her away. Her reign in Essos offered hints. She freed slaves, yes, but she also crucified masters without trial. She ruled Meereen, but struggled to bring peace when old powers resisted her. She was not a queen of compromise. She was a queen of absolutes. You were either free by her hand or destroyed by it. That worked in cities where she was an outsider, a liberator arriving with dragons. But in Westeros, where every lord and every family had their own power, her way of ruling could not survive. The throne knew that. Westeros was built on fragile alliances, on politics, on bending rather than breaking. Daenerys was fire that consumed all. There is another layer to consider. The throne had already been stained by madness once before. Her father, the Mad King, sat upon it. He too believed in fire, in burning his enemies, in ruling through fear. He nearly destroyed King's Landing before Jaime stopped him. If Daenerys had taken that seat, it would have been a repeat of history. The wheel she swore to break would have spun again, this time with her at the center. It's as though the throne, a cursed seat of power, remembered the madness of her bloodline. To sit another Targaryen with that same fire upon it would doom the realm. So it closed itself to her. The rejection becomes clearer when we compare her to Jon Snow. Jon never wanted the throne. He was reluctant, quiet, brooding, and focused on duty above glory. Unlike Daenerys, he did not crave power. In fact, he rejected it every chance he had. That contrast is important. The Iron Throne seemed to resist those who lusted for it. Robert Baratheon seized it, and his reign was hollow. Joffrey wanted it, and he died poisoned. Cersei schemed for it, and she died crushed beneath the Red Keep. Daenerys longed for it since she was a girl, and she never had it. Jon, the one who avoided it, was perhaps the only person worthy in spirit. But even he never sat upon it, proving that the throne had grown tired of rulers altogether. And so we reached the moment Drogon melted it. That act was more than dragon rage. It was symbolic. The throne rejected Daenerys, but in the end, it rejected everyone. Drogon's fire destroyed it because the Game of Thrones itself had destroyed his mother. The obsession with that seat had consumed lords, queens, kings, and armies for centuries. It had led to betrayals, wars, and rivers of blood. In a strange way, Drogon carried out the will of destiny by burning it. The story ended not with a new king upon the Iron Throne, but with the throne gone forever. But let's imagine for a moment what might have happened if Daenerys had actually sat on it. Would she have ruled for long? Her enemies were many, her allies few. Sansa would never have accepted her. Arya would never have bent the knee. The lords of Westeros feared her more than they respected her. And Jon Snow, the man she loved, already doubted her. Her reign would have lasted perhaps days or weeks before rebellion rose against her. The throne did not just reject her for who she was. It rejected her because her rule was doomed from the start. To allow her to sit would have unleashed a storm that the Seven Kingdoms could not survive. There is also something about the way her vision foreshadowed this. In the House of the Undying, she stood before the throne as snow, or ash, fell around her. She reached out but never sat. At the time, fans thought it meant she would rule after destruction. But the truth was simpler. The throne was showing her that she would never have it. It was not hers. It never would be. The vision was not about victory, but rejection. She was blind to it, chasing a dream that was already lost. If the Iron Throne was cursed, then Daenerys was its greatest victim. Unlike the others, she built her whole life around it. For Robert, the throne was a prize of war. For Cersei, it was a tool of control. For Joffrey, it was a toy. For Daenerys, it was destiny. To be denied it so completely is what makes her fall the most tragic of all. She lost more than her life. She lost the meaning of her journey. Still, one could argue the throne's rejection was not cruelty, but mercy. If Daenerys had ruled, she would have drowned in endless rebellion. Every choice would push her deeper into tyranny. Her dragons would have burned more cities. Her enemies would have multiplied. The people who once cheered her name would curse it. By keeping her from the throne, fate spared her from becoming an even darker monster than her father. Her story ended in tragedy, but perhaps it saved her from something worse. There is also the question of love. Daenerys was always torn between her dream of the throne and her desire for family. She longed for children, only to lose them. She longed for Drogon, only to lose him. She longed for Jon, only to be betrayed by him. The throne was the one constant dream she thought would fill the hole. But the throne gave her nothing. It rejected her, leaving her alone in every sense. In that final moment, when she touched it but never sat, it was as if the throne whispered that she would always be alone. It was not made for her. When Drogon carried her body away, fans wondered if she might live again somewhere far to the east. But even if she were resurrected, the Iron Throne would still be gone. Her dream died with her. That is the most chilling part of this theory. Daenerys was not just killed. She was erased from the very story she fought to control. The throne closed its door on her, and history shut her out. This theory makes the ending of Game of Thrones feel more complete. Many fans hated how quickly Daenerys fell into madness. But if we see it as the throne rejecting her, then her downfall was not sudden at all. It was building for years, foreshadowed in visions and in choices. It was never madness that destroyed her. It was destiny. She fought against it with fire and blood, but destiny cannot be burned. Perhaps the saddest truth is that Daenerys might have been happier without the throne. In Essos, she had people who loved her. She freed slaves, she built armies, she was a queen in spirit. If she had stayed there, she might have ruled for decades. But the Iron Throne called to her, and she could not resist. That is the cruel beauty of it. The dream that gave her strength was the same dream that killed her. The throne's rejection of Daenerys is not just a story about one queen. It is a story about power itself. The Iron Throne was a symbol of endless struggle. It chewed up everyone who reached for it. Daenerys was simply its final victim, the one who proved that no one was ever truly meant to sit on it. In the end, the throne chose no one, because the throne itself was never meant to exist. And so the image lingers. A queen who dreamed of ruling, standing before the throne she had chased all her life. Her hand touched the cold swords, her eyes filled with wonder. And then, before she could claim it, her life ended. Not by accident, not by betrayal, but by destiny itself. The Iron Throne rejected Daenerys Targaryen, and in that rejection, the story of fire and blood came to its close. Daenerys fought her whole life for the Iron Throne, but in the end, it was never hers. Maybe the throne didn't just reject her, it rejected everyone. If you want more mind-blowing Game of Thrones theories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned.